You are here for True Lies on 4K, and that is what we are going to be talking about today. This movie is probably one of the most talked about movies I've ever seen when it comes to chatter and people hoping for it to arrive on 4K. This movie never even got a Blu ray release, and so people have been clamoring for this movie, and it is finally here. So, how does it look? How does it sound? This movie has been controversial, to say the least. A lot has been said about the video quality of this movie. And I don't know that I really want to wade into like the specifics, like getting into, DNR, waxy faces, things like that. I kind of want to come at it from a different angle. People are very passionate about this film for some reason. And I'm going to get into that a little bit today. I think, first of all, because it's a James Cameron film, he's kind of an elevated status person when it comes to movie making because of his success. He made Titanic, Avatar. I mean, these are major films. Terminator 2. These are incredibly well-known, loved films. And so I think that feeling and respect that people have for him as a filmmaker extends to all of his films to some degree or another. And I think True Lies has almost kind of reached a mythical status. And I think part of it is because it was never released on Blu-ray. And so you want what you can't have, right? And so people are like, "Oh, I can't have True Lies on Blu-ray." And it just makes them want it even more. It's kind of like the toy at Christmas that's sold out, right? I mean, is the toy really that great, or is it just kind of like a frenzy that kind of builds up and builds up? So I think in the case of True Lies, I think there's some part of that. I think there's an element to that, but I think there's more than just that. So I actually just saw this movie for the first time a few years ago. I streamed it. I can't remember if it was on Netflix, Hulu. It doesn't matter. It looked awful. It was super blurry and pixelated, and it was garbage. I think I would have been better to watch a DVD version of it. But anyways, I watched it for the first time because when it came out, I was too young to go see it. There was no way I was going to be allowed to see this movie. But I heard about it. As a kid, I heard other kids talking about it. And I think what created a lot of buzz around this movie was the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis does her dance, specifically. That's what I heard being discussed amongst the other children of my age group. And I think that scene kind of, for whatever reason, took hold, and that's what people remember from the film. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the only thing, but I think that scene really stood out to people. And it's what they remember from it. So fast forward 30 years, this movie, because it hasn't been available on Blu-ray, people remember it like, "Oh yeah, True Lies. I remember that movie being a really big deal. That was a really big movie," which it was. It was a successful film. But was it as successful as we kind of remembered it, or we overbuilt it in our minds? I know this isn't really part of the movie review. I guess I'm just intrigued by this idea of a movie taking on almost mythical status. And like I say, for the last few years, has been so much buzz about this movie on 4K. When are we getting True Lies on 4K? When are we getting True Lies on 4K? And now it's finally here. And so it's inevitable that some people are going to be disappointed. Now, not everybody is disappointed in True Lies on 4K. A lot of people are saying, "Hey, it looks the best it's ever looked. I'm happy with that. I'm just happy to have it on 4K." And that's cool. But for those people who are disappointed, for whatever reason, whether it be the picture quality or whatever complaint they have about it, I wonder how much of that is driven by just elevated expectations that were were not met. That's kind of my take on it, for whatever that's worth. So yeah, as far as the picture quality, look, I think it looked great. Did it look perfect? No. But, when you watch a movie, you're watching it for the story. You're watching it for the characters. I mean, who watches an animated Disney film and says, Jafar, he just didn't really look very real. I mean, that chin, it's not very realistic. Okay, like we're watching these for the story, and the story of True Lies definitely came across to me despite the picture not being perfect. Like, we used to watch movies on old crappy CRT monitors, and they were fuzzy and blurry, and we still enjoyed them. And so it's how the story connects to us and how it resonates with us. And I think those things can be still experienced even if the picture isn't perfect. And with True Lies, it's almost perfect. So I think we're all going to be okay. That's what I'm saying. I think we're all going to be okay. Now the sound, that's interesting to me. Let's talk about the sound. So with the sound, this movie is an action movie. So you would expect lots of surround sound, a lot of overheads, a lot of explosions, a lot of, really good sound to really take advantage of an Atmos theater. So I obviously watch my movies here in my theater, and I have a 9.2.4 Dolby Atmos home theater. And so I have a 145-inch screen with a projector. And so movies that look and sound good really look and sound good in here. And so as I'm watching True Lies, I'm paying attention to the sound. I'm listening to say, okay, how good is this sound, And I think, how shall I say this? The sound was good. The sound was good. The sound was adequate for what they had. The dialogue came through clearly. The soundtrack, the music came through in the surrounds very well. Helped fill out the sound, gave it some more volume. And when I say volume, I mean like lift. Like it was full. The sound was full when it came to the soundtrack. But with a few exceptions, it wasn't really a surround sound fest. I'll give you a couple examples where the surround sound really did shine through. Scenes where there was a lot of gunfire, so you'd hear bullets whizzing by you, around you, above you. Specifically when his wife drops the gun, and as it falls down the stairs, it continues to fire. Very implausible scene, but it was funny. And I thought it was well done. It was entertaining. It was entertaining. And so as the gun is falling, it's shooting, and the bullets were just flying by. And so they played that one up, and that was good. There were a couple shots where helicopters came in, and so you had the overheads. Those are obvious. You never pass up an opportunity. I mean, that's just a given. If they missed that one, that would be a big miss. But no, they used the overheads for the helicopters. And then when at the very end, when they're flying the jets, that was actually pretty cool, because the jets would just fly by side, and they would pan from all the way from the back of the room all the way up to the front. They would pan across the screen. Whoever mixed the audio track, they really dialed in on those jet sounds, and that was really cool, and I really liked that. This movie didn't have any what I would call demo material scenes. There's nothing that really stood out that would like blow you away or amaze your friends. But it was a good Dolby Atmos soundtrack. In that, I mean, the sounds effectively conveyed the story, immersed you in the story, and pulled you into the movie. And so it was effectively done. So while it didn't have that wow factor for the majority of the film, I feel like it was well done. One of the common complaints I hear from people who complain about Atmos, Dolby Atmos, is they say, "Oh, my overheads, were only used, for like 2 minutes out of the entire movie." And well, if they only needed to be used for 2 minutes, given the story and the material that was on the screen, then that's how it should be. Like, you wouldn't, if somebody's on the screen and they're speaking, you wouldn't want that voice coming through an overhead. It wouldn't make any sense because that's not where the image is. That's not where you are relative to the person talking. So in other words, it only makes sense to use the overheads when it makes sense. And in this movie, they were used where they should be used and they weren't used where they shouldn't be used. And so it all worked. In fact, at one point in the movie, very early on, I'm watching the movie and I'm just sitting back and I'm just grinning because I'm enjoying the movie. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh, geez, I got to be paying attention to the sound so I can have things to talk about and to mention in my review. And I'm like, I think the fact that I got lost in the movie, I would say that's a pretty good indication that everything's working here. It's coming together and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing because I was loving it and I was enjoying it. And so take that for what you will. If you enjoy this movie, if you've seen it before and you enjoy it, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth seeing on 4K, 100% guarantee there. And if you haven't seen the movie, yeah, check it out. I don't know if I would do a blind buy if you've never seen it before. But it's worth seeing. And I think part of it is it's maybe I'm overstating this a bit, but I feel like it's kind of part of history. I mean, James Cameron really is a legendary filmmaker, and this is a movie that he made. Watch it because of just who made it and the fact that when it came out, it was kind of a big deal. It was a successful film. So anyways, that's my take on True Lies 4K. Thanks for watching.